Rich Eisen reacts to the Saints' Week 2 boat racing of the Dallas Cowboys. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are reacting to Richard Eisen. Rich, who famously in the offseason called Klint Kubiak Cliff Kubiak, is going to tell us all about how he's now jumping on the Saints bandwagon, if I had to guess. I'm interested to hear what he has to say. The reason why I'm so interested is because I'm interested at the change in perception of the New Orleans Saints to the national media. The national media drew a line in the sand this offseason where they wrote off the New Orleans Saints. I mean, we talked about it extensively. We were ranked 27th. We were ranked 31st. Derek Carr was completely maligned. Dennis Allen was named the first coach to be fired. The Carolina Panthers were predicted to win, to make it be a wild card team. Derek Carr was talked about as the worst quarterback in the NFC South. Our offensive line was talked about as the worst offensive line in the NFL. And my, how that has changed. So it's interesting to see it change in real time. So let's go ahead and let Rich take it away.
Another reason why you don't want to overreact so early in the season is because we're still learning who teams are. And after week one, we certainly thought the Cowboys were a team that could come out and play all three phases and hit you in the mouth and have you wondering if you're even worthy of playing on the same field as them.
So I mentioned this a lot, and for a lot of you who watch the channel, day in, day out, this will be nothing new to you, but there's multiple ways to watch sports, specifically the NFL. You can either watch the game, the one game, the singular data point. You can look at that and go from there. And you can say, okay, well, the Vikings are 2-0, so they're the number one team in the NFL. The Saints are 2-0, so they're the number two team in the NFL. The Bengals are 0-2, okay, they're last in the NFL. You can do it that way. And that's a very dangerous way to do it, because then you create this yo-yo pattern. You create this very swingy pattern where the Bengals lose to the Patriots, so then you think the Bengals are total ass. Then the Bengals should beat Kansas City, the defending champions, at home, if it wasn't for a couple of controversial yet brave calls from the officials. And then all of a sudden you're like, well, wait a minute, maybe Cincinnati's awesome because they almost won that game, right? And you constantly are swinging back and forth. And when you have a microphone in front of you, like a lot of NFL analysts do, that can cause for some pretty rough takes. The way I like to do it is to get in front of it and to see all the numbers, dive into the analytics, look at everything, come to your own idea, your own opinion, and with enough evidence to back it up. Then you watch it play out, because you're not going to be right in every prediction. You watch things play out, and as they play out, you slowly move your prediction one way or the other. You slowly maneuver until the end of the season. You have a really good idea who teams are. That's how we do it. And if you look at my top 10 ranking last week, who was number 10? The Cincinnati Bengals. Dropped them, didn't drop them out of the top 10, dropped them to 10, because I think I had them at 5 the week before, and I thought, you know what, a 5-point drop, that's enough. That's fine with me. We'll drop them there. We'll see what happens. We'll move it just a tiny bit. So remember that as you watch these games. And last week, the Dallas Cowboys were a good example. On, I think, the betting preview, we looked at their box score. The Dallas Cowboys box score against the Cleveland Browns was not as good as the score indicated. So everything Rich just said, like Dallas Cowboys looked like a team who no one else is even able to be on the field with. But if you look into the actual details of the box score against the Browns, you see that, this is really more of like a 10-point win. Still a good win, no doubt. But it's not this dominant performance that if you just kind of very shallow level look at the game. So always remember to dive deep into these games, look at the analytics, look at the context, form your own opinions.
That's what happened last week in Cleveland. And then they go home to Dallas, where they've won 16 regular season games in a row, to take on a Saints team that 40-burgered Carolina, and a lot of people just shrugging their shoulders going, okay, that's Carolina. They were worst in the league last year for a reason. And then the New Orleans Saints showed up like the Green Bay Packers of the wild card and just hit the Cowboys in the mouth repeatedly. and the defense couldn't stop him. And Alvin Kamara comes out,
Dude.
like the Alvin Kamara of old.
So real quick, let's talk about that data point. So 16 straight regular season games at home. Okay, well, that's a weird data point because, one, it conveniently leaves out the playoff game at home where they got absolutely demolished by the Green Bay Packers. So if you're telling me, like, well, the Dallas Cowboys are 16-0 in their last 16 at home in the regular season, but then you look at their last home game and you totally ignore that one. So the most recent data point is actually that Dallas is susceptible to getting smoked at home. Not saying that has anything to do with this game. But then another problem with that is if you go back and say, well, they've won 16 regular season games in a row at home, or whatever. You're not factoring in the variable of Dan Quinn leaving. You're not factoring in the variable of this new look Dallas Cowboys running back room, which is probably the worst running back room in the NFL. You're not factoring in Jake Ferguson's injury against, like, he's not playing against the Saints. So you have to factor those things in. Trends like that, like Bobby Hebert does it all the time. No hate. Bobby Hebert always is like, well, the Saints are playing the Eagles this week. The Saints are 1-6 all time against the Eagles. They lost to him in 1991, 1999, 2003, and he says, so we struggle against the Eagles. It's like, brother, half the players on those teams are they even around anymore? RIP. You know what I mean? Like, how are you going to say they struggle against those teams when those players are not on the team? The coaches are not there. Completely different league. You know, everything's different. So using those trends is a very risky endeavor.
And look at Derek Carr slinging it around. Look at Derek Carr feeling all good about himself again. And look at the Saints with Klint Kubiak with the page turned officially from the Sean Payton era. New offensive coordinator, new plan, new...
That's not even Kubiak. That's Janoko. Oh, my God. I'm so sure that that's Andrew Janoko that I think it's Klint Kubiak. That's Andrew Janoko.
Orleans, 2-0. Look at the New Orleans Saints. Out there in the bayou, just hanging out all summer long. We had Tyrann Mathieu come on and basically said, well, actually, we're in Southern California here for much of training camp, coming on and saying, hey, don't forget about us. And the Saints come on out in all phases, looked like the Cowboys of last week, and turned the Cowboys into the Browns of last week.
No. Close. They turned the Cowboys into the Carolina Panthers.
And
without Marshawn Lattimore. Without their best defensive player, who would have been up against the Cowboys' best offensive player. Didn't matter at all.
Quarterback, wide receiver combination that Jerry said we're going all in on, we're not signing until the very last minute, and he dropped a combined $94 million per on him. That offense didn't even crack 20.
And they're lucky they cracked 19. If it wasn't for a blown play that is, as fluky gets, I mean, they're lucky to crack 10. You know, you're talking about a 12-point drubbing.
And the Cowboys have now lost their last two games at AT&T Stadium by a combined score of 92-51.
Interesting now how that data point has shifted. We go from 16, you see what I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen, how dangerous that can be? You go from 16 regular season unbeaten to 0-2 with a combined total of whatever it was 92 and 50 something. And all of a sudden, that data point looks real different.
It looked non-competitive, looked like this thing was over right from jump. The Saints scored a touchdown on their first 5 drives of the game. 6 drives a game, pardon me. And with Kamara scoring 4 touchdowns and Carr accounting for 3, they have back-to-back 40 burgers for the first time in a season since 2018. The 91 points they've scored right now are tied for the 4th most in the first 2 games in the history of the National Football League.
I'm pretty sure I saw somewhere where the Saints scored 30 points or more in the first half of the first 2 games, which is, I want to say, the first time in NFL history. I'll have to double-check that stat.
And the last time a team started a season with 2 games in which they scored 44 or more points and won them both.
2009 Saints.
The 2009 Saints. Remember what they did?
Won the Super Bowl.
They won it all. How about that? They're just the 5th team to ever do that, to start a season with back-to-back wins, scoring 44 or more points in the game. And they're the last 2 teams to do it.
Now imagine the paradox that the national media is in, okay? Imagine the paradox. Put yourself in their shoes for a second. You've spent all offseason. You have a team that you believe is somewhere between the 27th best team in the NFL and the 32nd best team in the NFL. That was your take 2 weeks ago. Now you have that same team who has completely dismantled 2 teams, one including the Dallas Cowboys, which I'm sure was plenty of analysts picked to win the NFC East, plenty of their pick to win the NFC in totality, plenty of their picks to win the Super Bowl. You have arguably the most popular team in media, Dallas Cowboys. They're right up there with the New York Yankees, Los Angeles Lakers, So now you are forced to recognize this team. And now the question for you is, how high do you propel them? Because if you're them, if you're the national analyst who have the Saints as the 32nd team, the 30th team, you have to ask yourself, okay, where did I go wrong? How did I mess this up? It's the same conversation that the hombres that drafted Bryce Young are having. It's like, okay, what was our protocol? What happened to allow me to do this? What happened? I know the answer for the national analysts is that they're not watching the Saints. They're not paying attention to the news. They had no idea who Klint Kubiak was until halfway through the Dallas game. That's the problem.
Derek Carr is feeling himself. He's a guy who was sent home for Christmas by Josh McDaniels. This is a guy who winds up in New Orleans, and last year under the Pete Carmichael reign, which was the last throes of the Sean Payton era, he looked lost.
Okay, now I'm not going to say that he looked great. He did have whatever it was, 25 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. You see 25 and 8, I don't know if you would say lost. Tied for the division, 9 and 8, all those things. Was banged up a little bit, first year in a bad offense, all those things. So, like Carr's year last year for looking lost, respectable, I think you could say.
Not anymore.
The Jacksonville Jaguars would pay about $280 million for Derek Carr's production when Derek Carr was, quote-unquote, looking lost. How team-friendly is that Derek Carr deal now? You get Derek Carr, was it 4 years, $100 million, with the last 2 seasons virtually team-controlled? Meanwhile, Dak Prescott's making $60 million a year. Meanwhile, Trevor Lawrence has lost his last 7 games. He's, what is he, 15 games under 500 as a starter. He makes almost $300 million. Meanwhile, Justin Herbert throwing for 150 yards a game, making $300 million. I don't know, man. I'm starting to think Mickey Loomis has this thing figured out.
Derek Carr in New Orleans, baby. Hit it.
Yeah.
I promised our team and I promised our city I would do everything in my power And now it's not going to be perfect, but I was going to do everything in my power, exhaust everything that I could even begin to imagine to try and just be better this year. And so far, we've started off good.
Let me say this. I am happy for Derek Carr right now on just a human level. However this season goes, it is what it is. I am happy that Derek Carr is getting this moment right here, because every interview that we've heard from this guy, from all accounts, he's one hell of a human being. He is trying as hard as he can. He loves football. He loves the game. He respects the game. He believes in himself. He has high character, high values. I'll say it right now. I'm proud that he's my quarterback. I'm proud that he's the quarterback of the New Orleans Saints. When you look around the league at some of these people that are playing quarterback, Deshaun Watson, and you look at what's going on, and you look at what is being said and done off the field and all that, and then you look at Derek Carr and you see what he had to deal with in the national media, in the local media, with his own teammates last season. You look at all that, and my, oh my, how quickly that has changed. And from all accounts, it couldn't have happened to a better guy. Now, does that mean we're going to go to the Super Bowl? Does that mean Derek Carr is going to have a statue of him outside the Superdome? Does that mean that he's the franchise quarterback? Does that mean all those things? No. What it means is right now he's getting some flowers. And what it means is right now for 2 weeks, he's smiling. He's walking around. I highly doubt Derek Carr is a drinker, but he's not having to buy his own drinks at any bar or any restaurant in New Orleans right now. And for a guy who had to watch a Mardi Gras float with his depiction, not very flattering, might I add. He had to watch that. For a guy who got booed off of the field in Detroit. For a guy that 3 weeks ago was dealing with maybe Jake Haener should be the starter conversations. For a guy that had to deal with Michael Thomas subtweeting him at halftime for the most part. Happy for him.
As a famous fellow Bayou member. Bam!
Bam!
They kicked it up a notch. Have they ever?
That's funny.
And guess what? Let's take a look at the Saints' schedule.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Because next...
All right, let's take a look. So we advise taking the Saints over 7.5. We have multiple videos detailing why we took that bet. Also on my Twitter and Instagram pages. They are 2.5-ish point dogs to Philadelphia. They will be favored depending on how Atlanta does against Philadelphia. They'll be favored in this game. They will be dogs against Kansas City. They'll be favored at home against Tampa. They'll be favored at home against Denver. They'll be favored on the road against the Chargers. They'll be favored on the road against Carolina. They'll be favored at home against Atlanta. They'll be favored at home against Cleveland. They'll be favored at home against the Rams. They'll be favored on the road against the Giants. They'll be favored on the road against the Commanders. If Jordan Love's back, they'll be dogs at Green Bay. They'll be favored on the home against Vegas, and they'll probably be dogs against Tampa Bay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Hold on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. 13 wins is not out of the question. 13. We were saying we'll take 9, we'll take 10 a couple weeks ago. 11 high bar. Because all of a sudden the coin flip games of Cleveland and the Rams, can you name a Los Angeles Ram receiver right now? 2 weeks ago, we were dogs on the road against the Giants. We were 1-point dogs. And we said, this line might be a little out of whack. I'd probably go ahead and take that. I bet I haven't looked at it, but I guarantee you we're probably like close to 3.5, maybe not that much. Somewhere in there. Probably 3-point favorites on the road now. Probably swung 4 points. And the most important part, ladies and gentlemen, is that none of these games Even the games I didn't count as wins, Green Bay, KC, Philly, on the road at Tampa. The Saints have showed you with this demolition of Dallas, the Saints have showed you they can compete with every single team on this schedule. Every single team on this schedule. 13 wins is not out of the question. And let's say we drop a couple of the ones that I just threw out there. Let's say we drop one to Atlanta. Divisional games, crazy things happen. Let's say we drop another one to the Rams. I don't know. Now you're sitting at 11 wins. That probably still wins you the division. The conversation has shifted. It has shifted quick from, yeah, maybe we'll go above 500 to, yeah, maybe we'll win the division to, yeah, maybe we're the 2 seed.
Next up for them is a slobber knocker. In the dome, the Philadelphia Eagles might be equally 2-0 coming in next week.
That's gonna be a good one.
Oh, baby. It's a short week for Philadelphia.
Philly plays in 10 minutes. If Philly loses this game to Atlanta, what is this line? This line becomes a pick, probably.
A.J. Brown's not playing tonight. We'll see what happens with him. And guess what, man? Is that an early window game? I don't know if they're going to switch it around or not.
That should be flexed to Sunday night.
Well,
You don't flex a week 3 game, my boy.
yeah, I mean, Sunday night's already settled with Kansas City in Atlanta. That's
Yeah,
one
it's an early game.
game. NBC getting Kansas City. They are not swapping out of that.
This game's going to be so much better than that one.
Let me see. Philadelphia at New Orleans. That's just plain old 1 Eastern on Fox.
Yeah, almost all the Saints games were always noon Fox.
Which means, they're going to be waking up early there and a lot of swing oil for the folks in New Orleans there. Then they're at Atlanta, at Kansas City on a Monday night, home for Tampa. Proof's going to be coming out in the pudding here, but these are fun games if the Saints are flying around.
They are. Remember 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago? Put your hand up if you remember. Saints were a boring team. Saints were a boring team. And now all of a sudden, right back to where we were when Breeze was here. People act like this was 30 years ago. The Saints were a 13-win, 12-win team 4 years ago. Most of those same players are on this roster. I mean, it's easy to frame it now. But most of the roster, the Alvin Kamara's, the Demario Davis, the Cam Jordan, all these guys, Marshawn Lattimore, all these guys, Dennis Allen, these guys were there. It's not like we're talking about a team that was 20, 15 years ago. Oh yeah, this team was fun 15 years ago. This is like the same roster relatively. It's crazy how fast people took the Saints and said, oh, Breeze isn't there. Oh, Peyton's not there. Boring. Oh, well, they still have a lot of the same players, a lot of the same playmakers. Not boring. They suck. Nope. Worst team in the NFL. I'm ranking them at 27. Well, Alvin Kamara's still there. Chris Olave is still there. Demario Davis is still there. Cam Jordan's still there. Tyrann Mathieu, Marshawn Lattimore. These guys are... Nope. I'm going to say... Let me see. Let me take a look at the rankings that were already released. They have them at 27. I'll go 28. Boom, 28.
Defensively, Cam Jordan and Tyrann Mathieu just laid some people out yesterday.
What about Alontae Taylor?
They came into Dallas on Sunday with intentions. And we have a new clubhouse leader.
Yeah.
Of the worst take I've heard in this show in quite some time.
There's still time. First off,
excuse me.
Listen, guys, I don't want to curse in front of y'all. You know that this is a family channel. I know a lot of people turn this on for the family when they're eating dinner, and they have this program on, my program, of course, and they watch the videos as a family. Much like a young James, a wee lad, watch The Wonder Years with my family. every night. And much like that. But I'm going to curse. And I'm not going to lie to y'all. I'm happier than a pig in shit watching every single person walk back their takes. I haven't forgot about you, Kurt Benkert. I am enjoying watching every single person walk back their takes. Just 2 weeks. And Richard is not wrong. Oh, Dick Eisen is not wrong. That they are some of the worst takes in human history. These takes include that Bryce Young is a good quarterback. These takes include that the Carolina Panthers have a top 5 defense. These takes include that Dennis Allen will be the first coach fired this season. These takes include that the Carolina Panthers will be a wild card playoff team. Damn. Some of the worst. All before our very eyes.
On a overreaction show.
And
Now you sound like a YouTube commenter, Rich.
I'm trying desperately to
Now you sound
bury
like
the
a
fact
YouTube commenter.
that the Miami Heat should not have traded for Giannis Antetokounmpo, which is truly the worst take in the soon-to-be 10-year history of this show, and it was mine. Mea culpa. But Spencer Rattler starting for this team by...
Oh, yeah. I forgot about those. Jake Haener should be the starter. Spencer Rattler should be the starter.
Halloween, and Dennis Allen's going to be the first coach fired. That one is aging poorly.
On an overreaction show.
Okay, very good.
Thank you. I'm allowed to say whatever I want. It's like all due respect.
That's true. It is, in all due respect. It's a safe space.
Yeah,
it's like a roast. It's a roast in a way. I got it.
Come on.
But man, oh man, the Saints are just going to be must-see, watch fun if there's where they're playing.
their defense is always good, right?
It is.
Always. The Saints defense is always
They
good.
are a prideful bunch.
I wonder why. Ladies and gentlemen, does anybody... I mean, if somebody wants to speak up in the comments, what do y'all think it could be that would make the Saints always have a good defense? Does anyone think it might be the fact that we have the best defensive coordinator in the NFL as our head coach? That does seem like it makes some sense. Maybe that is the case, but then let me go to the drawing board. Okay, if we have the best defensive coach as our head coach, and our defense is always good, and the offense was the problem the last couple of years, then why would Dennis Allen be the first coach fired? Because it says here that the defense... Okay, it says the defense is always good right here. But then over here it says that Dennis Allen's going to be the first coach fired. But then over here it says that the Saints' problem was their offense. But then here it says that the Saints hired a totally new offensive staff. So, hear me out. If that's the case, then how can, if the Saints' problem was the offense, but they hired a totally new offensive staff from the most successful offensive scheme in football, then how can you take this point over here equal this, and then how can the Saints then how can their offense be boring? Well, this is starting to not make any sense.
DeMario Davis, they are a prideful
Jordan,
bunch.
But the way that offense was rolling yesterday, I mean, speed. You can't teach it,
Raheem
and they got a lot of it.
Shaheed.
Yeah, I mean, well, he's right. This guy's right. Like, the Saints did have a totally different roster last season on offense. I mean, like, look, like this year, this team this year is fast. Speed. But remember, the Saints offense was boring. We covered that. But look at who they had. They had a totally different roster. Last year, they had Alvin Kamara. Okay, he's old, right? They had Chris Olave. Come on. Last year, they had Rashid Shaheed. Come on. Offensive line last year. Let's talk about it. They had Trevor Penning. I mean, come on. They had Eric McCoy. Come on. They had Cesar Ruiz. Come on. They had Derek Carr. Come on. They had Foster Moreau. They had Taysom Hill. They had Juwan Johnson. Totally different team. They had A.T. Perry. As you can see, all those guys suck. All those guys are washed. Now this team, this Saints roster that we have now, this team is fast. This team's got way faster. This team has got way more. You'll hear the sirens. Downtown New Orleans, man. It's like Gotham City. This new Saints team, not that boring offense last year. Not the roster that was ranked 27th, 28th, 29th, 30th, 31st, 32nd by virtually every national media. Last week, after our week 1 game, ESPN had us ranked 23rd. No. We have a brand new roster. Now, we replaced Alvin Kamara, who's washed up, according to everybody. Way too old, even though he's the same age as Christian McCaffrey. We replaced him with Alvin Kamara. Chris Olave, we replaced with Chris Olave. Rashid Shaheed, we replaced with Rashid Shaheed. Taysom Hill. Foster Moreau. Juwan Johnson. Carbon copy. When have you seen a team make this much of a change and look this much different with the exact same roster? There is virtually 4 new players on the team. Talise Fuaga, Kool-Aid McKinstry, obviously the rookies, Chase Young, Willie Gay. I mean, there's a handful of guys who are new, like actual new players. A handful. Like 5 players that at this point have made an impact enough to be considered. I mean, I know obviously there's tons of turnover, but for the most part, in the starting roster, you're talking about 4 to 6 people. And we're sitting here like, yeah, this is a whole new outfit.
Man.
They have
Kamara,
15 scoring drives and 15 possessions.
Yeah. And Kamara, remember 2 years ago, I told you I didn't want to draft him in fantasy. I think he's washed.
Yep.
The last 2 seasons,
not washed.
He is not washed.
Not at
Crazy.
all. Catch the Rich Eisen show.
I'm loving it, man. This is a blast. This is the best time. This has got to be the best time to be a Saints fan since the Super Bowl. Since we won the Super Bowl. Unbelievable. Ladies and gentlemen, get on down in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I will see you in the next